What's up, guys? This is Andrew Frezza with Care Coach Lead, joined by Melissa Dixon, and today we're going to be talking about how to help your clients finally love rowing. So Melissa's actually our resident rowing expert. She rowed in college, so she's helped us and our team and our clients tremendously on the rower. And what I've seen when she's working with people oftentimes is after she improves some things, clients will say how much more they enjoy rowing because of the things that she's helped her with. And actually, last week at our coaches meeting, one of the coaches, we were talking about how to improve wall balls. And we were talking about, well, could we do a progression for the wall balls? And one of the coaches was like, no one wants to do a progression for wall balls. And I agreed with the coach, but when it relates to movements like wall balls, like rowing, like the skier that people don't enjoy, if we can give them stuff that will actually help them enjoy those things and do it better in classes or in one-on-one settings, then, and we frame it that way, we present it that way, then we can get them excited for it. Because no one wants to show up to a workout that they're not looking forward to doing a row. And if we can help them get better at it, then they don't have to dread doing those things. So just one little tip there in terms of presenting this. It's not a rowing progression, it's not rowing tips, it is how do we get you to finally enjoy rowing and not dread it when you see it. So we got 3 big focuses for today. The first one we're going to be focusing on is on length. And the common misconception when we coach length, we all know taller athletes typically do better on the row, but most people are focused on length on the way out. We're going to focus on length on the way in. So I'm going to kick it over to Melissa, and she's going to help me with my rowing.
Yeah, we always know that people tell us like, oh, I hate X, Y, Z. And usually when they say I hate something, it's just because they don't feel in control of it. They don't really fully understand it, or they don't know how to fix it or what they're doing wrong necessarily. And usually when we fix that thing, then they start saying, I enjoy these things now. I actually felt like I was doing good. And that kind of, we don't have anyone who comes here to our gym who hates exercising. There's no one who hates exercising. So this one movement is my heart and soul. When someone says they hate it, I'm like, I can make you love it. So the first thing that we're gonna focus on lengthwise is really the distance in on the machine, because if we know anything about our rowing stroke, all of the power from that wheel starts here. So if we're not getting here into that power, we're missing some of that distance. We're not focused on the length out here because the distance there is where we're finishing, where we've already finished the pull. Getting longer there is basically a waste of energy. So I see a lot of coaches try to say, you know, they say the right things like, we want a long pull, but long doesn't mean far. Long means get into that machine. So to show you what I'm talking about, Andrew, just take a couple strokes like you normally would. We know Andrew has some limited ankles, so Andrew's normally one I have to coach into this a little bit. I want you to watch here while he's rowing and watch where his handle is coming. All right, relax. So what I would do for an athlete, I always kind of walk around and coach and sight that clip where we rest the handle or the oar. And what I like to do is I like to say, Andrew, I want you to try to get past this. I want you to try to get farther from this. A couple of things could be going on in his stroke, but I'm not going to tell him get his butt further away from his heels. I'm not going to tell him anything about his posture. I'm not going to correct any of the stuff he's doing back there. I'm just going to have him focus on this and see what happens. So focus on getting towards my hand here, past that clip. Try to touch my hand if you can. There we go. Keep going. Good. And relax.
Better.
So that was about 4 inches more of distance into that pull. And if you could see his screen, I could hear his wheel. Those were more powerful strokes because that power exists here. You'll have some athletes who either have hypermobile ankles and can get into this position, who can actually touch here. Longer athletes can touch there. When we're a taller athlete, we can get all the way into that and not have to round our backs or compromise anything in our stroke to get there, and that's why we're stronger. It has nothing to do with length back there, okay? So just knowing that helps someone see that power expression go up. But what it also does is really help some of the things come up to your catch position. So a lot of times I'll focus on the distance between heels and the butt. When you put or you have an athlete, Andrew can't physically do it, but when we're coaching, we'll see people actually hit that slide, that seat, to their ankles, and look what that does to the distance here. That athlete is not getting up here. So immediately if I give them a target with my hand, I say reach for my hand, their butt goes back. I don't have to tell them anything about their body awareness. I just tell them hit my hand, and that's the only way they can get there. So for someone who's a little bit less connected with their body awareness, this is a big help for them.
Yeah, 100%. So the next thing we want to talk about was cadence. What did you want to talk about with cadence?
Yeah, so cadence is a really big one, and it's one of those things that's a little bit less tangible for an athlete because it's not a physical target. It's within them and their own pattern. So with cadence, I always talk about 1, 1, 2. So if a pull is 1, you need to go 1, 2, back to the screen. What this focus happens to be is getting them a little bit of recovery. These are for your athletes who are high stroke rate athletes who are usually going 1, 1, 1, 1. So show us what a 1, 1 looks like.
Whew.
Good. So that 1, 1 athlete, that person is probably a little short. They can still have a really good, well, that was a very short stroke. Not short this way. So that person probably has a shorter stroke, but there's a lot of athletes who can do this pretty effectively with a good stroke. You look at them, their butt's not touching their heels, they're getting pretty long, but what they're not doing is they're not letting that wheel slow down enough to put power into that machine to make that split time go down or the calories per hour go up. They're just flying and dying. We call it flying and dying. So they're just going and going and going, and they're feeling that effect too. So aerobic athletes like runners, people who are just all into the cardio, you'll see these athletes with those kind of stroke rates like 38 sometimes, you'll see up in that range. And those athletes, they need to slow to the screen and feel what that hard pull feels like. It's gonna feel very slow to them at first. It's gonna be a little uncomfortable, but immediately they'll see that that power expression, whatever it is, calories per hour or their split time, they'll see that change dramatically. So when we do 1, 1, 2, let's show a 1 pull. 1, 2. 1, 2. So he's not doing any type of pausing in this. He's returning under control. What this allows someone to do is relax that tension in their body and glide back up under control. So if someone's not getting this, you can relax. If someone's not getting this, I'll usually tell them, I literally want you to imagine being in a boat. And when you pull, you're letting that boat go underneath you and glide across the water, right? So I'm gonna pull hard, and then I'm gonna send that boat sailing. You don't wanna put that oar back in the water and stop that progress, right? So sometimes some of that imagery will help if they're not really getting it. Another thing that I see is usually like in a bigger male athlete, someone who's super powerful, they start to employ a pause. So you wanna show them what that pause looks like? So they'll get the cadence, they'll go 1, 1, 2, but they pause and they hold a lot of tension, or maybe they relax, but what that's doing is that's not continuing to spin. So it's slowing that wheel down even more when that returns. When that cable doesn't return under control, you guys are affecting that wheel as well. So there's a lot of things going on. We want that smooth return. We want that cadence to be really consistent. We want you to feel loose on that oar handle on the way back in. So that way we can regain that tension and put that power in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to say it. You could say, as you've mentioned several times, or you could say, I want you to come in, take twice as long on the way in as you come on the way out. We could pay attention to stroke rate as well. And I like how you frame it as more cadence as opposed to just stroke rate, because you can kind of game stroke rate a little bit, and I think cadence really gets them to ultimately what we're trying to achieve, which is a place that they can feel in control, feel that they can enjoy this machine, as opposed to like they're just trying to play catch up the entire time.
Yeah, when we talk about stroke rate, everybody knows, oh, the number. I know my number, I'm 32, I'm always at 32. For me, I'm down at 21 to 24. If I'm over 24, it's a short sprint for me. I'm usually 24 or less, and that's where I feel most control because I'm a powerful athlete in my stroke, and I like that wheel to be slower. But what happens is it doesn't focus on cadence. It only focuses on the amount of strokes you're taking in a minute. So if you take 32 strokes with a cadence, or you take 32 strokes that's 1-to-1, you're going to feel a lot different, and you're not going to be able to put as much power into that machine at a 1-to-1 as a 1-to-2.
All right, so let's talk about our final tool, which is getting the screen out of the way, turning the screen down, doing some kind of blind rowing, and starting to disassociate what I'm doing from always having to see that output. The screen's amazing for feedback, but we find that athletes can get too caught up into it, and then they're struggling to hit paces that maybe they should or shouldn't hit, but they're so focused on the number, they can't even really improve what's going on here.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things as a coach to be able to do, and we've even put it in workouts before. We love it so much. That screen, especially for someone like me who spent so many hours of their life on a rower, the number is mental, you know? Even on a biker, even on a skier, that number, we know our split time. We do this all the time. We know, okay, if I hit 2:00 or if I hit 1:55, I can kind of tell myself where I'm going. And some days it's gonna feel great, and some days it's gonna feel like a struggle to hit that number, but that's my number, and I'm gonna do anything in my power to hit it. So I might start rounding my back and tuck my hips under a little bit to just keep that number going in any way I can. So what we like to do is just slam that screen down and say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to row, and I want you to focus on that tall posture today. Keep that rib cage up, keep that airway open, and give me that cadence. Let's focus on the 1-1-2, and let's just have at it and see what happens with our strokes. This way we're not focused on any power output. We're just focused on what our body's feeling. And a lot of times when we do this, we talk mostly about perceived exertion or what we think we're outputting. So in terms of a longer time frame, maybe it's an EMOM, maybe it's an every 2-minute kind of thing. We're rowing and we're not looking at the screen. We're just going, and then we can look at it afterwards and see what we got. And I'll tell my athletes, I just want you to feel like you can go for all 2 minutes of this or all 4 minutes of this or whatever we're doing in that moment, in that row, and say, I want you to hit that stroke where you know it's as powerful as you can get and maintain it for the entire time that I want you on that rower. And a lot of times what'll happen is that athlete who thinks I'm a 2-minute per 500 pace athlete, they're hitting 152 the whole time, and they don't realize it because they don't see that number, get a little panicky, and have that relationship with the screen there of, I don't know if I can hold this for all 3 or 4 minutes that she wants me to. They just go, yeah, I can do it again. Yep, I can do it again. All right, I can do it again. And it may fall, or, you know, it may go down or up naturally, but it's usually a faster pace than what we see them holding when they see that screen.
Yeah, I find it's for a lot of clients, it's the first time they actually are into their body in this machine, because so often that screen is the only thing they've ever thought about. And for the first time, you're getting them to actually understand, what am I feeling, and what I'm doing, is it something I can sustain for the required amount of time? And then once they get that understanding, like, oh, okay, this is what it would need to look like for me to be able to sustain it for a period of time. And sometimes it's just like a little bit more relaxed shoulders, a little bit more relaxed breathing. They can find their own solutions. It's not just, there's no real 100% clear path to it. There's a lot of little things you can start to play with of like, how can I continue to get my perceived effort down while my output stays up, and I don't have to worry about my output for the time being.
Yeah, I love this so much in many ways that we've done it. So practical application as a coach, I like to program this in warm-ups. We've done blind rolling. So if you guys know the game rolling, where you're rowing and trying to hit 100 meters on the dot, just 100 equal. What we do is we'll say, all right, today you're gonna do blind rolling. You're gonna turn that screen all the way down. You're gonna row 10 to 15 strokes, depending on how powerful you feel you are as an athlete, and let's see where it lands. And a lot of times that person will like start at 12 strokes, like I'm not sure I could do it in 10, and then they go way over. and what you see is a cadence develop. You see them actually putting power into that machine and kind of intuitively knowing what it takes to put into that machine a little bit better. And then when we show them that screen and we show them where they landed over, under, then we talk about, okay, now what would you do? Add a stroke, take away a stroke, try to mimic that same feeling on each pull, but then we're going, you know, next round, getting a little bit closer to 100 and getting that relationship established. So when I coach them later and I'm saying, okay, it's a 250 meter row for you today, you know that's going to be about 25 strokes. Now you know how easy that is to accomplish and how under control you should feel in that pull. So let's keep it there. Or other ways we put this into practice is, I love this in an EMOM to where we're just focusing on, you know, maybe we do have a score that's rowing meters that day and you're trying to do, you know, the most meters in that time, but putting that screen down so you're not mental about that number where you get to that 35, 40 second mark and you're like, I can't hold this, I have to take a break. You don't get to that point as easy, you don't get panicky when you see those numbers.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that's it for this video. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and we'll see you in the next video.